Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dave and Tom show. Dave Emmons, Tom Althouse. We do a weekly show, and today we're doing a special show, and it's going to be about UFO disclosure. And the gentleman that you saw on the show last week, in which you pretty much liked. I mean, he got a good response. So hopefully this will give a good response, and that everybody will listen and be enlightened by it. We're also syndicated through a radio station, WDY in Maryland. Eddie Carson is there with that, and he's with Odyssey Radio live.com. So you'll hear the audio version from the radio station, but you'll see the video version on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, Twitter, LinkedIn. Those are the platforms we go out on. So let me get started with our guest, Tom. Tom, of course, Althouse is a screenplay writer, actor, and he's been involved. He knows a lot about the cabal and Illuminati and all this other stuff. We've been talking about that, and we're being shadow banned, of course. We're being affected by what we say, but we want to speak the truth and enlighten people, and that's why our guest today, Thomas Fiorio, he was on last week, and he's going to talk about disclosure, UFO disclosure. And Thomas Fiorio has worked as a dive master, a machinist, and electrical engineer on projects in the United States, Red China, and Bermuda. He has been an independent UFO researcher since 1969 to 1998, at which point Walt Andrus, founder of MUFON, asked him to become a section director for MUFON, and that was in Missouri, I believe. Later, he would go on to assist state director for Missouri MUFON. He then co-founded the MUFON dive team with Debbie Ziegelmeyer, in which we both know she's the Missouri director of MUFON. And then Fiorio joined Ted Phillips as his assistant in 2006, later became part of Ted's SIU team. He assisted Ted Phillips on his Marley Woods project, and what's a big project is still going on, and his Tetra Mountains Moonshaft project. And he's also got some work coming up. He's going to be a consultant in documentaries and things. He knows people like Stan Friedman. And so, so Ben Henson, all these people, he's been working with them. So he's an expert. Thomas Fiorio, welcome on board the show with Tom and I.
Good to be here, Dave, and glad to be with you guys again.
Okay, but we want you to get involved. You sent me a long letter, what you want to do in disclosure, and I want to hear it from you on disclosure. We might ask questions as you go along. Tom might interject some questions about, he might get into the spatial groups in which we've all talked about. You can say what you want to, what these other secret groups and stuff, but it's up to you, whatever you want to say. Tom and I are more outspoken about it than we're getting the whiplashings from it too. Okay, start off, Thomas. Tell us about what you think about disclosure with UFOs.
What I'd like to just say and make public, it's from years of working with these people, and I just would like to add I'm not a name dropper. I just do it to authenticate my experiences and my background, but I've worked with Ted Phillips, was a great researcher, worked with Professor Alan Hynek, and he was a great friend and brought me in to be a friend and work with Stan T. Freeman. And through Ted, I worked with Jacques Vallée and Douglas Trumbull and Ray Stanford and on and on. And I am so privileged to have worked with them and gained a lot of their knowledge. And all through my career with these people, there was one key thing, that one strand that all these people always tried to interject to me was that the disclosure is not what people think it is. It's not going to happen the way people think it's going to happen. And all these people in common, and another great individual I worked with a little bit, became friends with Dr. Carol Rosen, which was von Braun's, actually, the father of our rocketry, his assistant. And she even led me to believe and showed me the facts that von Braun also talked about disclosure and what it's going to be. Now, the one thing they all had in common was that there's going to be, at some point in our future, a disclosure type event, which is going to be a false flag operation. It's absolutely not going to be what's portrayed. The so-called aliens or entities that come, whether it's actually another actual landing, how they're going to pull this off, it's not clear. But at some point when mankind, and we're at our worst, there's going to be a technology which is going to come as the alien technology to save mankind. And they're not even honest about that, because it's not interplanetary, it's all interdimensional. Now, when you get into the interdimensional arena with this, I also worked with people in the Mutual UFO Network, and just acquaintance I've gotten through these people, again, I've met and talked to in the religious event. Actually, some of those were very great religious people and wrote books about the experiences in the Vatican. And I'm talking about names that you know in a minute, like Father Malachi Martin. Of course, everybody knows about him from the Art Bell show and his years of disclosure, and the third secret of Panama, which I truly believe is the false flag operation. It's a warning what's going to take place. And these gentlemen, and another one, Dr. Arnold Murray, another Father Ildefonso, when I was a child, spoke about the Vatican and what they knew. So that put in its place, I had that to draw upon. And these gentlemen, and another great individual, the Reverend John Schrader from St. Louis, Missouri, which was in Missouri MUFON, which of course was the precursor to the Mutual UFO Network. But, and Reverend John Schrader was a researcher, investigator, and he also warned me and told me about the Vatican and what they knew. So I had this input from 4, sometimes 5 sources, all stating the same thing, what the Vatican knew, what was going to take place. And of course, getting into the realm, does what's coming have the authority to be here and do what they're going to do? And that gets into a whole nother arena. But basically,
Yeah,
it's a
Thomas,
false flag.
Thomas, you talk about interdimensional beings. Now, I think we have aliens that are based right here on Earth, maybe 4 or 5 different races. Will they be
Yes.
involved in it? And let me ask Tom Althouse what his opinion is of the false flag, and then you can tell us your opinion. Tom, what do you think about the false flag? How's it going to happen? Who's going to do it?
Well, that's part of the playbook. I mean, when I was on the inner circles, they always talked about a way to suspend rights of people, a way to control them, the way to get what they want is false flags. You can blame it on somebody else. They always play victim, and then they get control of a population or segment of population by doing so. They can galvanize them, they can motivate them, they can get them to do whatever they want, and they control the outcome and circumstances. They don't have to fear anything because they're the ones that are orchestrating it all, creating the bad guys.
And who's going to initiate this? The military,
well, there's a whole false flag that's forming in conjunction with this, and that's to imitate the second coming. And that's why my screenplay is about that. That's what's happening. They've already had the Toronto Star release an article about that is in the works, and it's been in the works for a long time. They've been experimenting with changing the skies, turning them red, having trumpet sounds come from the sky. That's right. So they want to simulate a second coming in order to use the population by something that they're supposed to give their free will over to. It's insane. It's an insane plan. Okay. But whether other dimensional beings are involved in that, of course, I would imagine they are.
Right. Let's go back to Thomas. And Thomas, you can explain your red flag experiences through these religious leaders and things. You continue on, Thomas, now.
Yeah, and you know, it's so wide and varied, and I was so fortunate to have, of course, Ted working with Alan. He knew people in the media, and this goes back even into the days like Rod Serling had been promised with Burgess Meredith. They made a very great documentary called UFOs, It Has Begun. Now, they were approached by our government, like so many other agencies and people in motion pictures at one point. They were promised actually footage and information if they would make this movie. they started production, and of course, like so often, towards the end of production or midways, they started the production, and the government came and said, it's off. We're not going to do it. So in one case, Rod Serling went ahead and produced his own film without their assistance, which I urge you to watch that movie, UFOs It Has Begun. It's very great. It went as far as it could without the government input. And then he was.
What year was this movie?
I think 67, something like that. But he was so aggravated that the government did this, that he went on in a small way, because he was warned and he knew about disclosure, the big false flag scenario. He went on in a small way to kind of stick his finger in the eye of the government. And on his show called Twilight Zone, you might remember the episode called To Serve Mankind.
Yeah.
And basically what that entailed was an alien race came to Earth, gave their technologies, worked medical cures, tripled food production, free energy for all. And they had a big book that one alien had taunted around, to serve mankind. And at the last episode, the last part of the episode, the scientist is getting up to go on the saucer to their planet, and his assistant comes running that they finally decoded their language. And she says, to serve mankind is not for our benefit, it's a cookbook.
Yes, I saw that movie. That was, yeah.
So that was his crude way of sticking his finger. And a lot of people, some know the story, a lot don't, but that was actually his crude way of sticking his finger with the people that promised him footage and he worked with, and to get even, and that he had that out there. So that's a little insight in that.
Right. I think Tom and I talked about this, that Hollywood, some of these producers, like the rich ones, we're talking about Spielberg and all of them, they
Yes.
get this information from the inside, from
yeah.
the military. What group was warning these directors and producers about these movies? Was it the FBI?
It goes beyond that. You can go into whatever alphabet you want. It gets beyond, besides DARPA and the FBI, there's other agencies that aren't commonly known. And just a quick insight on that. As you know, Dave, I told you about a great gentleman that was the first state director of MUFON in Missouri, Bruce Whitteman.
Mm-hmm.
There was a point back before 9/11 occurred that the government came to Bruce because the origin of Mutual UFO Network was in Missouri. And Bruce was one of the main directors at that time of MUFON. And they approached Bruce at one point. They were going to do a disclosure program at Area 51. And they contacted Bruce to be part of that. And they also contacted, besides MUFON, some of the media, some of the news outlets. They were going to have some reporters there along with MUFON, and they were going to go through to Area 51. And Bruce asked me to accompany him. And we actually went to Las Vegas at one point. We were going to go in, of course, Janet Airlines. Now, do I think they were going to show us everything they had? And I absolutely don't. I think it would have been a dog and pony show. I think it would have started the process.
Right.
But then again, like so many times, they backed off at the last minute. And a little thing happened at that time called 911.
Mhm.
And I don't blame them. They told Bruce and I, they said that, we got bigger fish to fry right now than you guys.
Yeah.
So we're putting that on hold.
Right.
They did approach us years after 911. They even brought us to Maryland, and we went in a meeting room in Quantico, and we waited hours. And there again, our contact, which was a gentleman we knew by his name to us, our contact name was Red. And he was a real deal. He was the one that dealt with Bruce, and I met him. And he did our background checks when we dealt with him. And but then again, at the last, waited 4 hours in the room, they come in and they said, it's off. They changed their mind.
Mhm.
Now, our contact, Red, told us, he said, the way it works, guys, is 50% of the regime is strongly against disclosure in any form and feel that if you're interested, there's enough technology and information out there to gain. We're not going to force feed anybody. Now, he said 50% of that organization is for disclosure and starting the process. But unfortunately, the old part of the regime is what signs the checks and gives the orders, and they're against it.
Right.
So,
yeah. I want to talk about a story that I had Uri Geller on my show several months ago, and he told me about visiting Werner von Braun. He called him out there. He wanted him to demonstrate his powers of bending spoons and reading minds, and he did a good job. So Werner von Braun said, "Okay, I trust you now." He said, "I'm going to take you out to a bunker." He showed him. They put on these heavy coats, and they went into this bunker where Marines were guarding it. And he went in, and Yuri said, "Why the heavy coats?" Well, he's going into a freezer where there was a couple of bodies of aliens, and Werner von Braun had those bodies on that base. So that was something else. And I want to jump back to Tom Althouse on some of the inner workings. He worked in Hollywood. Tom doesn't. He knows some of the interferences and what groups are doing this, stopping things or giving information. Tom, could you shed some light on that?
Well, I can tell you that it's what I've been thinking while we've been talking is that the elite or the cabal, whatever we call them, they and the government agencies don't want to release this sensitive material. I've done that over and over again, but I would venture that it would be better in the hands of the public than in their hands. The public would handle it much better than the alphabet boys have and the governments have. I mean, the public would handle it well. And so I think it's time to actually turn that around and let things just be revealed. I think they've done a bad job because what goes along with that is lying to us. They lie to us all the time. And we're finding things from World War II and on that it's just like things covered up. Yeah. And we're too smart for that. We don't need that. Let critical thinkers have the materials we need. Stop holding it back from us. And some of the things I do know in circles I've been involved in, they talked about children being involved in these things, almost like tender, almost like trade value, and that there's a way to please other beings by resources we have. It's not money. It's, having their tech for trade. And the factions, like I think you did a good job describing the factions within the cabal. No one's ever talked about that much, I've heard. And I try to bring that to light about there's divisions within these cabal structures. And their lineups are not always joining good bedfellows and cohesive and amiable.
So it's the cabal that has the influence in Hollywood who tells these producers and directors what they can do and what they can't do, like Thomas was referring to.
Yeah, well, they actually tell me the contacts that have handled me, like you talk about the Illuminati and others that approached me, a lot of them don't even want to use their titles. They don't want to use the organizational titles they're involved in. Right. They'll come and say, there's more to it than you know. We'll be exposing that to you. We're going to set you up. For me, they want to be a script doctor. They see intellectual property, art as power, and they always want to acquire that. And so we're considered assets, as you know. And so they don't always give us the full story. They'll use code names, as like the one guy said that you call him friend in French or something. The word, that's the code name for him. But he says it's not Hollywood that has the power. It's not the alphabet boys that have the power. It's actually those over them. He cites the banks, like Bank of England, things like this, and royalty are involved, and that it goes way, way back on bloodlines. And so he's saying that the general public doesn't even realize who actually calls the shots when it's the brandy and cigar meetings.
Okay, we'll go back to Thomas and let him continue on what he's saying. Thomas, we're just stepping in and shining some light on these deep state operatives, the cabal and everything, because that's what Tom and I do. But we want to kind of be a shock absorber for you, Thomas, in telling your story. Would you continue on about? We left off where the producers and directors were told what to do and what not to do. Do you know of any other of your research friends that were actually told what to do and not to do?
Yeah, it gets really complex sometimes. Ted, through the years, of course, dealing with Alan Hynek, and of course, Project Blue Book didn't terminate when they said it did. It goes on to this day. And Ted worked. I met a few of the people that Ted worked with. Of course, unfortunately, they're all passed away now. But yeah, it's instruction. And Ray Stanford, which is was a good friend of mine, and he wrote Saucer in the Pentagon Pantry, and did the Lonnie Zamora's Socorro case research with Ted, and Alan Hynek was there. There was guidance there, along with that whole case. The State Patrol came and validated Lonnie Zamora's, the police officer's story. Had that not happened, I think that it would have went down different. But because of that, there were other elements there. At the time, CIA and different branches were there and directing that investigation and watching it from afar. So there's always that control factor. And just so much of what you guys spoke about, anybody that's been in this business long or deals anything with the truth, and those kind of people, you are contacted by the people, like you said, the Illuminati and other branches, other organizations, and it's very real. And it's not just something in the movies as people think it Tom Cruise made or but it's a very real organization, and branches of it. There is a core element there that knowledge is power, and they're going to attain power however they can. If they can buy it, they will. If they can use people at times, they will. And if they can intimidate people, believe me, we've all felt intimidation at times in different ways.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Tom and I's been through this, and of course Tom's been there and done that. And I, just like you, I've been asked, from Illuminati, and you've had other friends who's been there, and they're wanting knowledge, but you sell your soul to them in a way when you take their first transaction.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's we're
okay.
We're being flipped out.
Like,
Normally that happens when we start talking
you
about
something they don't like.
Yeah.
So,
I want to get back to the disclosure, Thomas, on the religious leaders that you're talked about.
Yes.
What did they exactly tell you about this disclosure? Is it going to happen? Does the Vatican know anything about this?
It gets into one of the gentlemen that was a friend of mine when he was a seminary student. He came from a wealthy family, and they actually sent him to Rome as part of his education. He knew three of the languages that I'm trying to remember: the ancient Hebrew, Koine Greek, and Aramaic.
Aramaic, yeah.
And he was fluent in those. And when you have that in your pedigree, down in the several miles of catacombs, of libraries in the Vatican, they're always fighting an ongoing battle with a fungus destroying the manuscripts, the ancient biblical manuscripts. And what they do is, and I'll go again, our government learned so much of keeping secrets and compartmentalization from the Vatican, which they still have a very close working relationship, I will tell you.
Yeah.
But they take seminary student, different people with that kind of skills, down to decipher. They'll give them a paragraph, a certain section of a manuscript. They'll translate that, and they're out of there. And unfortunately for them, some of these people, after they're out of the Vatican, they become friends, and they put two and two together, and they speak about things that they deciphered and translated out of this. And so much of it, when I was told this, I was not prepared for it, that so much of the false flag operation, the alien, even getting into dealing with that entities or so-called aliens are dimensional, and it all comes through a dimensional base and not interplanet. But when you go interdimensional, you can go interplanetary.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to go through that interdimensional portal to acquire or be able to do this. And then it's all possible. So, when I go into this, people say, "Oh, you don't believe in other planets." I said, "No, I didn't say that. I absolutely believe in life on other planets.
Right.
I just believe the mechanism, because I've had it explained to me above my pay grade, but basically Stan Freeman and others have told me, that a nuclear physicist, that, it sounds good. And I was a Star Trek fan. It sounds good and light speed, but you're dealing with physics in our side, that the physics and reality of it is to take a solid object the size of a pea to attain light speed would take the combined energy output of the earth for 100 years to drive a pea to light speed one day.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with the physics on our side that it's just not practical, and it really can't happen that way.
Yeah, it's
Now,
kind
when
of
you
like
cross-
supernatural. I've been doing some studies on this new book I'm writing, the third book, and I read where Jesus actually told his disciples that the Nephilim will come back during the end times. And he said the Nephilim and the giants were around during Noah's time, during the big flood that destroyed the earth. So he said when they come back, the Nephilim, and there's been stories about them being seen and actually an attack in 2002, the Kandahar giant. There's a story, L.A. Marzulli, a good friend of mine that's been on the show a couple of times. He's got these documentaries and stories about that. But the question I want to boil down to, and I want to ask both of you, is the Vatican and the Pope, they have these records surrounded by the Swiss army, and they're protecting him. They will not let nobody in there. They're top secret. I want to start with Tom first. Tom, what do you think the Vatican and the Pope are hiding from us?
Well, I think they're in conjunction with the rest of the cabal, that they're trying to keep any sense of information that may kickstart us intellectuals into really joining the ball game and steering it in a benevolent direction, taking that information and turning it into a better world. They don't want that. They want to have a world they control, that their assets are secure. And that's what the elite spend most of their attorneys' time on, is making sure they don't lose their influence, affluence, and finances, and that they always stay the 1%. And so I think that there's an agreement among the Billionaires Club across the globe. We're already a one world society right now,
right,
where they control the ball game in order to protect their assets, influence, and power. And so that's really what it comes down to. With the idea of freedoms in different countries is really a myth. It's really the Billionaires Club that controls this globe right now.
right. I saw a documentary the other night, guys, Thomas and Tom, about the Vatican is hiding information that they have about the Bible and about the historic starting of the Christianity, and which could hurt the church. So that's why they do it. I'm going to bring Thomas back on the other side of this break. We're going to take a break now. You're listening to the Dave and Tom show, and Thomas Fierro is on the guest hot seat, and we're going to be back. We got WDY Radio, who's also doing an audio version of this, Eddie Carson, and it's the OdysseyRadioLive.com. We'll be right back after this short pause. Okay, we're back. And for you video people out there, you're going to think, well, this is kind of crazy. Well, we do this because of the radio syndication to take the pause. But for us, we in the video, we don't really take the pause. But this is the Dave and Tom show. We're being syndicated through WDY Radio. That's in Maryland, and it's OdysseyRadioLive.com. And we have a guest today, Thomas Fierro, and he's going to talk to us about disclosure. He's been talking to us, and we've been going back and forth on some of the things that Tom Althouse might know, my partner here, and Thomas. Thomas, back to you, buddy, on this religious factor, the Vatican and Pope. What have you heard from your people?
Well, you just a small little bit of glimpse, like you mentioned about Noah and the Nephilim. There's so many books of the Bible that's been taken out by the church at periods, like the book of Enoch. And of course, Enoch was the great grandfather of Noah.
Right.
And if you've ever written, I urge you to read that book of Enoch.
I did research in this book. I got research from Enoch, book 1 and 2. Yeah.
Right. And it's great. And I would urge people to get into the ancient text. That is, some of it you can get now. The Apocrypha is a compilation of books that were not put in the Bible for various reasons. Organized religion didn't want this information out there, as Tom said. There again, with the Vatican, it's all about power. Knowledge is power, and they're not going to relinquish any bit of their power or give it up willingly. So they'll hang on to this, and not for man's welfare either, I might say. But you get into the Apocrypha, and if you want to get into a word-by-word study biblically what's in the Bible, the King James is the closest thing we got right now to be accurate. But if you get in those, get a book called the Strong's Concordance, that takes it word by word, breaks it down in close to the original meaning. And I will tell you that, you know, I was raised a Catholic and fell away from the church, but I will tell you there's so much of the Bible. I thought I knew the Bible. And when I got into the study of it through the ancient languages, of course, through my mentors, I had known nothing of the Bible and the true meanings and how accurate it is, and just what a wonderful piece of documentation about man's history and getting into the Nephilim and the first Earth age, and you know, all the technologies that were lost in the first Earth age, which you watch Ancient Aliens and they're searching for answers, and it gets into the first Earth age, explains it all in the detail. So
yeah.
I feel everyone should be exposed to that.
Right. The enlightenment. That's what Tom and I would try to do on our shows, to enlighten people. Some people can handle the truth and the enlightenment, but some can't. We're talking here. Now, the Vatican, the Pope, just last week, he ordered all their riches and their finances to be conglomerated into one place. That's the Vatican, for protection, I guess, from outside sources. What do you think they know that we don't know? And does it have something to do with the false flag?
I absolutely do. I think they know it. They know the truth that the false flag, when it's going to be the largest thing pulled on mankind, and not for their benefit. They're going to come, like I said, when we're at our lowest point, and from watching the news every day, it may not be that far, but
right. Yeah.
When we get at our lowest point, there's no way out. They're going to come with all the answers. They're going to come the technologies, and it may involve a landing. It may just simply be that, hey, they walk out of our laboratories. They've been working with our technology and research facilities for years. They may just come through that avenue and share the technologies and make it known what they've done for mankind and benefit, and how they're here to serve us. And they have ulterior motives, and I will tell you, and it's not good. And it just, the simplest way you can explain it is, it really is, as far as mankind is, it's evil.
Right.
And,
yeah, I heard this story about when they do come back with a false flag, and then the government says alien invasion, and the Anunnaki might come back. From what they're saying, the Anunnaki will come here and say, we are your creators. We created you, so we are your God, you know. So that's going to really destroy a lot of people's religious beliefs. Tom, getting back to you on this money thing with the Vatican and them pulling in all their money, why do you think they're doing that?
Well, I think something's up. The only reason they would do that, it would be a reaction. When the cabal or different factions of the cabal make a move, it's for a reason. And they usually don't let a lot of time pass when there's a reason. They usually do it right away. And so that's one of the things I've noticed. There are knee-jerk reactions to events or things happening. One example is in our situation personally, when we were revealing the stuff you and I were revealing in our programs, that's when they struck my website. The very same day, Warner Brothers exec from 3 decades resigned. Same time, it's knee-jerk reactions. Everything's done at the very same time. It's almost like they're in panic mode all the time, or fearful mode. And so when the Vatican pulls other money together, there's a reason, and a big reason behind it. Nothing's done just as whim.
Right. Thomas, I lean on Tom quite a bit because I'm going through some motions in which he's familiar with, and we're talking about these groups like Illuminati, and I won't do anything without him at this point, because he has experience. He's been there and done it. So, you know, I don't want to get involved in something I don't know anything about. I want to do good for humanity. I don't want to do bad. Thomas, you're the same way in this disclosure. You want to enlighten people about what's coming. And you said something about some of your compadres may not like what you're saying. Thomas, could you tell me a little bit further about that?
Yeah, and I think Tom's exactly right when he described that as they have a sense, they know that this is coming upon us probably sooner than not. And I myself have had, through different things, people I still deal with. I will be quite frank and honest with you. I would not have ever gone into this realm, the religious aspect of it, till I felt it was absolutely the right time. And through people I know in different contexts I have, and just being a watchman, watching what's happening, I absolutely feel also that where something is upon us, and I think it's going to happen sooner than later. And I do believe that's why the church, the Vatican, is responding the way they are right now, because they feel that time is short, and people I deal with yet, they feel that way too. Now, as you said, there are a lot of people in ufology, and it goes beyond being an atheist or anything like that. It's not that simplistic. It's just the knowledge and the power aspect of it, that there are people I've dealt with that don't like this part of the equation being out there for the general public at all. And I find that offensive. I feel that people should know this, because in the knowing what this is the key factor in what will give you power over this when it occurs.
Okay, we've talked about the aliens in the disclosure. What is actually going to be the real disclosure before the false flag? How far is the government going to go to telling us stuff?
I don't think, I've had so many people got angry at me when the Navy released the film footage, the Tic Tac footage. Certain individuals will go unnamed that have come forward, worked with branches of the government now, that claim to be who they are and bring all the documentation out. And people would ask me, well, how do you feel since there's disclosure? Isn't that a relief? And I always tell them, I said, from years of experience with these people, you take one step forward and you take two back. And I'm sorry, I've just learned over the years, I don't trust it, and it's not going to be what you think. And I heard individuals actually admit from the Navy that they said, we have, materials not of this earth.
Mhm.
Now they're recanting that, and they're saying,
Yeah.
well, we didn't really mean that. Now they're saying footage they're starting to take back as drones, high-tech drones, which it isn't. And now the Navy actually came out with a statement. They're absolutely, for national security, they're not going to release any more.
Right,
And I have a friend, John Greenwald, which I'm sure you're the Black Vault.
right.
John worked with us, and he's, he documented what they've said. Now they're stand on it. So, I hate to say it, but I told a lot of people that would occur like that. So,
Right. Yeah, the disclosure is going to be minimal, I think. I don't think they're really going to come out with it really big. I don't know if anybody can see this picture, but this is part of the research that I dug up, and it's from MSNBC, and this picture was taken over Ukraine, and the scientists are baffled. They don't think it's Russian drones. They don't think it's anything military. They actually think it's unidentifiable. They've seen a bunch of UFOs over the airspace of Ukraine during this war thing. And why wouldn't UFOs be interested? They're actually taking a look at the beginning of the end, maybe. Tom, what do you think about these Russian? Are they Russian drones? Are they really UFOs? Are they watching us? Or is this disclosure thing? How far you think this disclosure thing is going to go, Tom?
As far as this image you showed, I think they're spectating. They're spectating until they have the green light to get involved. And so right now they want to watch. It's almost like tourism. And it may sound wild, but that is the natural curiosity of other entities. It's going to happen. And I think what's going on is our agencies can't hold it back. Our governments can't hold it back. And so they're going to release a little bit in order to keep people distracted and keep them from looking in further. So it's basically, you get these smoke cover stories smoked that are supposed to make you go, oh, I've seen it now. Okay, I understand now. And then you're supposed to stop being curious. And they do that all the time. That's their policies. So we're not going to get truth. We're going to get something that's going to water us down, another version of weather balloons.
Like Dr. David Jacobson, I know Thomas knows about this book, They Walk Amongst Us. And we're talking about the cabal and Illuminati. We think there's aliens working with them. They're helping run the world and the world banks. And I'll throw this back to you, Thomas. What do you think about that the aliens are actually working in the high offices and around high leaders and also world banks? What do you think about that?
I absolutely do. And there again, this gets into, I do believe that the true phenomena behind this is a lot closer to us than the more or less the grays, the reptilian, all this is, you might call that the worker bees. It gets back into the best way to make a robot or anything is to grow one. And we're finding that out now in research.
Right.
But I do believe the entities that are working with the Vatican and different branches of our government are absolutely more like us than we can imagine. And that gets back even again into the biblical aspect of this, that it clearly states this biblically when you get in the ancient manuscripts, what's
Yes.
going to occur right now. So, but you just can't trust it. It's here for our benefit. And
now, what are your buddies saying? The ones that are naysayers, they don't like what you're saying. What are they saying? What are their beliefs?
a lot of them don't know to the degree they don't want to go there. And I will just come out and say, when it gets into the religious realm and they differentiate, put barriers down, and they just won't go there. And when I started in ufology, I was like Ted Phillips. I wanted to do the nuts and bolts compaction test, the structured craft. When I heard a story, in the phenomena paranormal, Bigfoot sightings, I would cancel it out. But it's all one and the same. It's all interdimensional. It all comes from the same source. And as the Native Americans I've studied, they call it the tricksters. And they know quite a bit about this. And they know as much in their religion as biblically as what the Vatican knows. So
basically your counterparts, the guys, as you said, might be a little upset about what you're saying about disclosure. They're actually saying disclosure is not going to go this way. It's not going to happen that way.
They actually, a lot of people still want to go that it's interplanetary and that is the source, and interdimensional has got nothing to do with this. And so, I mean, they're in that realm, and that's fine, and at one point I was there, but they didn't have access working with the people I had and some of my mentors, and that I learned so much from. And
Right.
that
I agree with you. Research really teaches you a lot. I know myself, I do a lot of researching on each show, and Tom knows that. And I go through a lot of things, and in my books, I learn a lot by going through research and going back and listening to what other people have to say about the history. Let's get into this. We got this group that I'm not really trustful of. Louis Alessandro, Secretary Mellon, and also the guitar player, Tom DeLonge, have this group together. And I want to go to Tom first and let him explain what he thinks about this secret group. And are they working both sides of the coin, I think, Tom?
Well, I'm not sure what group we're referring to at the moment, but
Louis Alessandro, Secretary Mellon, and the Blink guitar player, they have this Stars Academy thing. And what they're doing is they're trying to disclose. They're working on disclosure. But all of these people, except for the guitar player, he's not top secret, but Louis Alessandro worked for the CIA, and so did Secretary Mellon. He was top secret. So
right
these are they really? Yeah, there you go. Bingo. I hit a hotspot.
Often to control the flow of information the way they want, they try to create truther groups that it's like the covering of 9/11, commission, what they were given, what they did, and how they were limited. It's like they create something where it looks like they've covered it. End of story. And it's never end of story. All they've done is bury it over. They have cover articles they utilize. They have groups they institute. And we're supposed to believe that they're handling the information for the best of our interests. And it's not true.
Yeah,
So
I think Louis Alessandro and Secretary Mellon are still on the payroll, and they're still working a lot. A lot of people. Thomas, what do you think about this group of people? You probably know a little bit.
That was some of the individuals that I was not going to name, but and a lot of people didn't like my response when I gave my reply about these individuals, and but now they're kind of turning around, giving them a second look, and like I said, from working with these people over the years, I take everything with a grain of salt, and every time I've taken, and believe me, people like even Stanton Freeman, it was there so often, and Ted, and you take one step forward with these people and you end up taking two back.
Mm-hmm.
every time. And that's just the way they play ball, you know, with you. So
Mm.
Are there intents? Are there intent? Is it for disclosure, or are they just throwing up more disinformation? These three people. Now the guitar player Blink, Tom DeLonge, he's into it because he's very interested in it. He gave up a musical career with Blink 22, and he sounds like a nice guy. He's got this Stars Academy that he started, but he's involved in donating money into this group and trying to get the disclosure going. So he might be an innocent party of it, and it's just his interest. But you have Louis Alessandro and Secretary Mellon, who are still on the payroll, and they're working both sides. So how are you going to trust a group that's formed like that for disclosure?
yeah, that's just it. You can't. I mean, all intentions are well meant, but you know, myself, I've just been there too many times over the years, and then unfortunately in this world, that's the way it works. I look at who signs the paychecks, and
Right.
And that's usually the way it comes down, and that'll go back just a short little. Of course, you're familiar with Phil Class, the
Right.
disinformation that debunker. That was the government he worked for, and it's not a secret. He actually worked. He debunked people, and there again, if you can't attack the data of an individual and what they're doing, their research or their data, then you attack the individual.
Right.
And you bring down the person that's bringing the research forward.
Right.
And I've seen that done so many times over the years. And
Yeah. Well, look at Trump. Look what's happening to Trump. Yeah.
Dave, I want to throw something in.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Important factor that's involved in all this too, and I love what you're both are saying, is that they're destroying records. Right now, we're in a time of destroying records, and that was happening during 9/11, other times. But right now, even court records are being destroyed. In my situation, all our court records are being destroyed. It's like police records are being destroyed. That's a big sign when they do that. That
Yeah.
means it's going down, something's coming up big. And so what they're doing right now is doing unethical, illegal, and they don't care. They're thumbing their nose at it with the judiciary systems, and they're just cleaning house. So watch for, if we're going to see another false flag or something like that coming up soon, I would not be surprised if it was some central document holding area or facility that they'd want to just burn away.
Right. Yeah. It's like in World War II, burning books.
Mhm.
Yeah. They try to start a new regime.
Or cleaning records.
Yeah. And Thomas, have you ever seen anybody? I know there's some records that you have from a couple of buddies, but they belong to the family, and you're safeguarding them. Are there? And you said there's people probably interested in those records we were talking about earlier.
yeah, I mean, I've had people come to me and try to bypass the family that has the legal say so to sell the documentation or to distribute. However, you know, I don't have the legal authority to distribute. I have some, but I have seen intimidation that way. And as Tom was saying, was here again that comes into play was they feel that something's coming forward, that something's going to occur. I will tell you that on the local basis, that I call her my sister again, Debbie Ziegel, the state director for Mutual UFO Network in Missouri, and her assistant Margie Kay. I know you know.
Yeah, give her a shout out.
They're starting to get a phenomenon now happening again, which back in the old days in the 70s and 80s, there's a phenomenon starting again, and not so much Men in Black, but I will tell you there's investigators going out on cases, being tailed, being followed by vehicles. After they interview witnesses, a third party shows up and interviews not so much the event, but tries to find out about the investigators. I've had a little bit of that where I live. And some of the individuals, I've had my mail gone through. I get mail deliveries with packages missing. Letters sometimes are all been opened. And talked to my local postmaster, and they noticed it'd been tampered with. But you know, how do you make, you know, it's a federal offense, but I don't think you're going to do much good.
Right. Yeah.
Prosecuting a federal offense on the feds. So,
right. Now, have you met the Men in Black, and who do you think the Men in Black are?
I've never met anybody personally that I would deem that. I've met a lot of spooky people. When we
Right.
did conferences with Ted, they'd come up and speak with us, and they were on a fishing expedition. They'd question us in a way we knew it was beyond a common, just,
And very robotic, right?
yeah, sometimes it's
I
more
met
done
them.
purposely in a,
Mhm.
yeah, in a scripted way.
Right.
And so, I mean, there is that too, but I will tell you, for whatever reason, the intimidation factor and, like you said, shadowing in a way, tailing people,
Internet and
uh,
everything, yes.
it's starting to happen a little more
Oh, yeah.
frequent again.
Yeah.
Well, that's a political thing too, that they're getting more of an open door to do this now because of the regime that we have
Yeah.
now. Tom, who do you think is going through Thomas's mail and the Men in Black? I know you've been associated with movies and stuff. So who do you think the Men in Black are? What agency could be responsible for that?
Well, to be offshoots of the government agencies, Secret Service, FBI, CIA, and Pentagon. Pentagon's actually controlling the show. They're not working in our interest. They're working against our interest. And that's really why Cheney could sit his seat there during the 9/11 events, and why they consolidate everything together. My cousin was actually brought into the Pentagon in the Navy. So it's like, and it was there during 9/11. What you have is a situation where they do have to have a structure of control, a pyramid of command. They have to. And so it's a great question you just asked. And that command period, I really think, is the Pentagon. And so, yeah, which is an interesting shape.
So any several of these alphabet groups could be doing the opening of the mail and tampering and trying to look for information, especially with Thomas.
That's right. But also look for cross affiliations. Right now, the public needs to realize it's not just I'm in the CIA. I'm in the CIA, I'm in the Masons, and I'm also a congressman.
Yeah.
Giving you all kinds of composite powers in our times, which is not constitutional. It's not the way our founding fathers intended, and founding mothers. They're doing it because they want to be able to keep their stuff covert and keep control of everything. So now you're having multiple positions assigned to individuals. And that's the one that handles my sister. You can't be an lifelong FBI operative out of Hollywood and a Pennsylvania congressman and him with Ukraine on foreign soil when you're FBI.
Once FBI, once CIA, always CIA.
Brian Patrick is doing that. And then gets cover articles. One individual can illustrate the whole system, how it works. He gets the cover articles in the local paper explaining that, this isn't usually done, FBI and foreign soil, but he's allowed to do this because he's part of the anti-corruption department. It goes on. And my sister gets these amazing rewards. So you're seeing something where they have to cover stories on cover stories to try to cover up what we can see is fraud, federal crimes, crimes against humanity, and it's wearing thin. They're running out of a time frame to pull off these shenanigans. And
right.
so
Thomas, what do you feel about that? Is that explaining some of the things of your mail opening and packages missing?
Oh yeah. I mean, it definitely does. And the local postmaster, I live in a rural area. I can see my mailbox. I know it wasn't done at my delivery point, so I know it happened before it got to me. And of course, the carrier said when they got checking Times mail, they said, things look like it was tampered with sometimes. And a lot of that does happen naturally. You get that, but on a regular basis at points, sometimes, in packages missing, taken out of envelopes and things like that, it gets aggravating. And I think it's more or less done as an aggravation to me, intimidation. And it, to be honest with you, through the years, it really doesn't bother me. It makes me angry at times, but
we have to kind of put up with something we can't put a thumb on. One last question about the CE5 group, Dr. Stephen Greer. What do you think of him in Disclosure? I heard he plays both sides of the coin too. What do you think?
I will tell you that I was there. Of course, Bruce Whitteman gave Stephen Greer his first audience in a MUFON conference in St. Louis, Missouri, years ago. And I was there and I watched Steve. I believe he was a trauma surgeon originally.
Yes.
And I thought at that time his material was pretty accurate and he was well intended. Over the years, I've seen myself documentation, and other individuals have come to me and showed me things about what he's pulled. And I'll just say this, if I can't say anything good about any individual, I won't say anything.
Yeah, I heard
So I'll leave
offered,
it at that.
I heard he's offered a lot of money for his services. And Tom, what does that sound like? We just have a few more seconds to go. Your final
Yeah,
input on that
it's like playbook. That's the playbook.
playbook.
They,
Yeah.
they can't get you, they'll buy your family off. They can't do that, they'll buy your closest associates. They'll provide you handlers. They'll provide you people who are anonymous to destroy your reputation by going to anybody that's influential, including your jobs.
Yeah.
Or they buy you off is what you're.
Yeah, well, if you don't buy you off,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you're
Okay.
groomed to be the elite.
Last question, just last 30 seconds. You think disclosure is going to happen, Tom?
Thomas or Tom?
Thomas, and then you real quick, because we only have a few seconds.
Okay, I absolutely do think it's going to happen. It's going to be a false flag, but I do believe the people that control all the information, their hand is going to be forced. I believe it's being forced right now, and it's not going to be through their own intentions that it's done.
Tom, what do you think? Disclosure or not?
They know that we're smart. They know that intellectuals are standing up. Gifted people are starting to come forward and be able to broadcast, getting around all the tricks and traps.
All right, that's the end of the show. Sorry to cut you off, buddy. You've been listening to Dave and Tom show, and our special guest Thomas Ethereal, and also with the WDY Radio in Maryland. Eddie, Eddie's our man there, and that's with Odyssey Radio live.com. And this is the Dave and Tom show with Thomas. Goodbye, all. Hope you enjoyed the show. Bye bye.